Hey there, vinyl community. So, pulled a few records out, rearranging things, and I thought maybe I would make a quick video on some stuff that I think that I think everyone's pretty well aware of it, but it's probably stuff that I wouldn't normally show. So, I'm just kind of starting off with like we all know Pharoah. Great record, spiritual jazz. My copy is a little, it's not perfect. Waiting up there, right there. But other than that, this is back. I got this back in the days when you could pick up this album for a decent price. And nice copy though. My vinyl is real sharp, and of course the side. I know they did a reissue of this recently, but I try to never, I don't like having multiple copies of records. For me personally, I know other people do, and that's great, but for me. Next, let's just jump into, these two artists are so closely related. So there's Coltrane, wonderful record. Again, this is, spiritual jazz at its very finest. And again, I think that they've recently done a reissue of this. A long time coming. I'm glad they did. I didn't grab it though. I'm happy with my my copy. And yeah, this is one I was lucky to be able to get. I have one more. Alice Coltrane, and what did I do with her? Oh, here she is. This one is, that's probably like a VG. The vinyl is probably like a VG plus. Great record though. This is probably my favorite of the three. Beautiful record. When I bought these, I really didn't know spiritual jazz that well, and so I got a really good education. By the way, if you're curious as to what I'm playing in the background, some really nice, this is Japanese house music, and about this, trying to replace a few 12 inches that I had, from back in the day, but unfortunately some of these mixes are a little bit different than the original 12 inches were. It's still a great compilation. Check bells. Wonderful track. Anyway, just in case you're curious. Next, let's take a look at Sun Ra. An album that I think gets overlooked a little bit by Sun Ra. You can still pick it up at a pretty good price. Is this record right here? This is on the ABC label, so this is not particularly rare. It can usually be had at a pretty decent price. So if you're looking to just get involved with Sun Ra's music, this might be a good way to get started. Now, having said that, I would say this is pretty free, and so be prepared for a complex, often difficult listen, but one that I think is, if you invest the time in it, I think is very, very rewarding. This is a great Sun Ra record, and it doesn't get the credit that it deserves, in my opinion. So this is one I still think, although the prices are starting to go up even on these, but you might want to check this one out. It's doesn't have some of the diversity that some of the more well-known Sun Ra titles have, but in the end, I think it's a real statement and a powerful listen. So check it out. Now, here's Sun Ra that is a little more well-known. This is probably the album that most people, when you think of Sun Ra, There's some vocals on this, and this is kind of at that intersection of spiritual jazz, free jazz, big band, and like lounge. Really good, nice listen, fun. That's something I think people overlook a little bit with Sunrise, that his music, there's a lot of humor and a lot of fun in listening to these records. This is not a difficult listen, although if you're used to hearing like just, more mainstream jazz, this might be a little bit off-putting, but I love it. Great record, and of course there's a great story that goes along with Sun Ra. And if you haven't read about him, he is someone who, back in the day, like before COVID, and when I was starting to get into jazz, records like Sun Ra, Alice Coltrane, the mainstream jazz people looked down on these records. Now they've become classics, but at the time, you could pick up, I think I paid like $15, $20 for this record, and it's not perfect. The vinyl's real nice, but today you would pay, silly money for it. So it was a good chance to discover, and I was drawn more towards the avant-garde end of jazz than the, bop or hard bop or big band or any of that. That stuff just, even now, just doesn't appeal to me. So here's a good one, and here's one that I grabbed not too long ago. This is actually a reissue, but it's a reissue from 1973. The original of that is tough to find, and when you do find it, you're going to pay a lot of money for it. So this 73 reissue is a nice find, and I love this record. This one's a little more challenging than Space is the Place, but worth it. And I think, again, a very rewarding record. Not everything by Sun Ra is fantastic, but there is some fantastic music in his catalog. Many of them are the live recordings. Maybe one day we'll do a show just on Sun Ra. So there's that. Finally, we'll wrap up by John Coltrane. Just a couple oddball titles, kind of, that I don't have a huge Coltrane collection, but this is something, even when I started buying individual albums, this is a collection of later period later period Coltrane. And there's see from the track listing, it's a great introduction to, Afro Blue, Soul Eyes, so many of these songs, and this can be had, whereas for the full albums you're going to pay a lot of money. I still think you can find this collection, and it sounds really good. And it's on it's on those nice Impulse labels, I believe. Yeah. So it's a great buy, and a great way to kind of, if you're curious about the later period of Coltrane, which is, for me, that's the Coltrane that I like. My favorite is probably Ascension is probably my favorite Coltrane album, and to me, he hit the sweet spot right after A Love Supreme. Speaking of which, this came out last year. I don't usually buy too many archive releases, but this is from the tour that followed A Love Supreme in the United States, and this crosses over from that, where if A Love Supreme is the beginning of Coltrane's experimentation into the more free end of things, these live recordings really took that recording to the next step. And I love this record. This performance is so good. And if you like A Love Supreme and you haven't heard this, man, you're gonna enjoy it. And finally, save the best for last. So probably my best record find that I've ever had is walked into a pawn shop. I used to work downtown more often than I work now, in downtown Detroit. And I used to check these pawn set shops out. They would have, every once in a while, they'd have boxes of records. They would sell them for $3 or $5 each. And one day I walk in, it's the usual stuff, you know, it's Neil Diamond and, you know, whoever, but for the most part, nothing that anyone would be interested in. And then I'm flipping through it, and I come across the record. And I look at it, and I think, that can't be an original. And it was A Love Supreme. And it was mono, first pressing. And it was just in beautiful, well, here it is, beautiful shape. Everything that you want. It's not perfect. I mean, if you really start to get picky, to me, you know, for the price I paid for this. Now, it was a little bit more than the owner of the pawn shop must have realized that he had a title that was a little bit more interesting than the usual stuff. But it was $15, and it was $15 back in the days when this was still, you know, like $100 record. Probably in this condition, probably $150 record. But I was so glad to get it. And this, you know, other than Ascension, this is probably the next Coltrane that I think is really essential. And I show it more because it's just a fun piece to show people, and I know people in the vinyl community can appreciate a nice first pressing of A Love Supreme. So just a few jazz titles that I thought I'd show. I'm rearranging some of my records, and these aren't records that I listen to every day. In fact, I try to save them because I want to be able to, when I do listen to them, I want to be able to enjoy them, and I don't want them to you know, if you listen to them every day, that specialness, at least for me, is going to wear out. So when I want to hear Love Supreme, a couple times a year maybe, it still sounds fresh and beautiful and spiritual and all the things that I want this record to be for me. So, hope everyone's well. Thanks for your time.